Welcome to Real Flix Reviews. We're like a book club for people who hate reading. This month we're doing films that are underrated. So Ryan picked the movie Watchmen, made in 2009. We bring you the episode Blink of Doctor Who, and we bring you movie news. This week we have Jonathan Charney, James Stevens, and Ryan Preston. So here's the description of Watchmen, made in 2009, an alternative 1985 where former superheroes exist. The murder of a colleague sends active vigilante Rorschach into his own sprawling investigation, uncovering something that could completely change the course of history as we know it, or as they know it, considering this is an alternative timeline of 1985 that didn't exist. And,
I heard that before.
Right? It's almost like deja vu.
Yeah.
And this is based off a comic book by Alan Moore. It's the same gentleman who wrote V for Vendetta.
Yeah.
And it's pretty good to get actually two comic books from the 80s published into movies.
Well, and we'll look at the source material, though. I don't know if you guys have ever read The Watchmen. It's one of the best books I've ever read. And yes, I just called a comic book a book, okay? But and then V for Vendetta. I mean, you know, obviously this guy knows how to write some amazing stories, and I really like the alternate universe, and I like the way they kind of explained it with Hollis Mason, the original Night Owl, talking to Patrick Wilson, the new Night Owl's character. You know, saying that, you know, it all started with the crooks. They were putting on masks to go rob banks, so a couple of the cops decided, well, let's beat them at their own game, and they put on masks, and it just had this natural escalation. You know, the same way we always assumed, you know, kind of Batman went down.
Well, see, that's
in the First Order.
I was gonna say one of the most amazing thing about this is the original Night Owl, if I remember correctly, saves Thomas Wayne.
Right, that was one of the things in the opening sequence. It was kind of an Easter egg, like he presumably saves Thomas and Martha Wayne in Crime Alley, thus never creating Batman, you know.
Which I always thought was actually a pretty cool Batman. So you want to go first?
Yeah, you know, this one for me is what, you know, the comic book into movies should be.
Yep.
I mean, it's gritty. It, for me, humanizes the superhero character.
Humanizes how?
In the sense that you get kind of a behind-the-scenes look into what their problems really are. I mean, you got Rorschach, who's pretty much the sane one out of the entire bunch.
Even though he's a psychopath.
Saying something. And then you got Night Owl, who's like the conscience, but then you kind of see that he's got like a lot of different issues of his own. So that's what I'm kind of saying is like you get to see behind the curtain.
Yeah, and they've all got their lives. They've all kind of moved on, and they're all still sort of, you know, still got their left foot in the door of the superhero world, but
I'd say all
to lead normal lives after the ban of superheroes. You know,
I would say the only one that is probably closest to Batman being Jackie Earle Haley's character is Rorschach. You could see Rorschach was never able to let it go.
Right, yeah, just the undying sense of vigilante justice. Like, no, if we don't do this, who's going to? Yeah,
and I also
think I agree with the Batman thing because that's why I liked Rorschach as well.
Because he did say his mask was his face, very similar-esque to Batman being Batman was Bruce Wayne's real identity. If you actually pay attention to the comic books, Bruce Wayne was his, you know, more or less his
alter ego.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I liked about it. You know, Rorschach's joke about the one I heard a joke once.
Yeah.
This guy walks in and he tells a joke. That is like the most true way of really looking at things is because some of the funniest people like in this world, they had the comedian who was the pretty hardcore dude actually, but you know, life was a joke to him.
Right.
And it's like one of those things that I can understand that because if you don't laugh, you're going to go completely psycho and kill 500 million people.
What was like that scene? What was it? Owlman, or was the other guy? I can never remember his name. Has said, for a guy who calls himself the comedian, let me know when you're funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was Osmondias.
That's it. I can never remember that character's name.
Yeah. Yeah, try to pronounce it when you're reading the book, you know, before seeing the friggin' movie.
So,
like, oh, I wonder how you pronounce that. I've never seen Osmondias before.
That's I actually had the same thing about all the Harry Potter books. Honestly,
Yeah, I could see that reading those.
especially Azkaban.
Oh, jeez, yeah. So one of the things I really enjoy about this film is I really enjoy whoever put the soundtrack together. Because
Yeah.
not only there's a lot of really great songs in there from the 60s, 70s, a little bit in the 80s, but not only that, but they fit the scene so well.
Right. Well, they did that Forrest Gump thing where they took this sort of known history, changed it a little bit, and then inserted these characters.
Yeah.
You have the comedian shaking hands with Nixon, which is basically Elvis Presley shaking hands with Nixon.
Yeah.
So it's these revisionist history kind of things, like with what if 1985 happened with superheroes, and you have all these iconic things. We won the Vietnam War. One of the little Easter eggs in the thing was every American flag had 51 stars on it because Vietnam became the 51st state after Manhattan just laid waste to the place.
Yeah.
It's this weird thing, like what if we won? What would that do to our psyche of the
Ryan?
controversial stance of the Vietnam, should we or should we not kind of thing. It was on everybody's mind,
Yeah.
and then we win due to this superpower. I mean, to me, like after reading the comic, this is one of the best adaptations I've ever seen of a comic book. It was so true to the source material, to the point where it actually got shit for it because it was like they felt it was unnecessarily violent, but it was a graphic novel, and they didn't pull any punches. The choice to actually show naked Blue Man, which is got no end of shit for on the internet,
Yeah.
was
Fishing
a
lure.
perfect choice, because what's your other choice? You put him in a banana hammock, and then everyone's like, "Whoa, what you do everything else, but you don't you pull the punch on the blue guy."
At least it wasn't as bad as The Crying Game, and that's all I'm going to say. To go back to the music thing, the scene where they did the comedian's funeral, they did
Yeah.
song "Hello Darkness, My Only Friend."
Silence.
I
The Sound of Silence is
That's
the name
it.
of the song.
I thought that, like, James is right. Even the song choice, the tempo of every song. This is one of the few movies.
Opening sequence
Yeah.
of "Times Are a Change" by Bob Dylan.
Yep.
I mean, it still gives me chills, dude. If I watch that,
I would say, besides Country for Old Men, this had one of the best soundtracks ever.
Yeah. One of the things I want to bring up is Ryan mentioned the unnecessarily violent of the film. I disagree.
I actually do
some
too.
people said unnecessarily violent. I don't think
But
that.
what I want to say is I think the violence that you saw was how legit it was really going to be. Now, mind you, a girl, probably weighing $120, whatever she would weigh at the time, punching a dude in the face is not going to send him over 6 feet into a wall.
Well, they still
but-
definitely put down some superhero kind of
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
I would add, this is 2009, so it's 4 years after Batman Begins. Up till this point, you didn't really have superheroes that were like this, at least in live action.
But-
In cartoons and animation, this is no stranger.
Sin City had been out for 4 years by this time.
Yeah, but nobody considers Sin City like a superhero film, not
Dude,
like
Mickey
this.
Rourke is
And
awesome, and he's
Sin
my
City-
superhero in that.
Well, yes, but you're digressing is the fact that this is a Watchmen, this is a superhero movie, and this was new for basically civilians, if you get
True.
my point. People who didn't know the source material. 'Cause-
Yeah, which most people did. I mean, really, I think the Watchmen book went to bestseller almost immediately after the trailer came out for this movie, just because everyone was wondering what that was all about.
And while we're waiting for Ryan to buffer, I just say my favorite
One of
character.
the biggest, novels ever.
I'd say my favorite character in here is like James said, and is Rorschach. My favorite scene is the prison scene when he splashes that hot oil on that guy. He says,
Okay.
"You guys, it's like you guys think I'm stuck in here with you. It's the other way around."
But Now, my big
See some of the
issue-
coolest one-liners ever.
Exactly.
My big issue about that whole scene is the fact that
He smashed through safety
well,
glass.
no, when he grabs the oil and dumps it on the guy. Now we did a movie last month that I believe would demonstrate what that oil would really do to the face.
You mean because it would
in
melt
Raiders,
him?
Remember Raiders of the Lost Ark, where that guy's face melts at the end?
Yeah.
That's what his skin would have done.
melting.
His skin
Yeah,
would have just
you're pretty much right.
dripped down off of there.
Oh yeah.
So, it would have made him extra crispy or anything. It would have just really melted his face.
It would yeah, it'd
Yeah.
pretty much kill him.
Yeah, he would die excruciatingly painful, but he would die.
Yeah, well, aside from literally showing his face melt off, I mean, I think you can see it a little bit. I mean, just that grease cover. I mean, it looked unbelievably painful.
Yeah.
But
Your eyeballs would be
I mean,
cooking.
there's nobody watching that movie, and it's especially if you've ever spent any time around hot oil, you just took a step back like, whoa,
Yeah.
that's really hardcore.
And there's so much about this movie that honestly, doing it the amount of time we have would be
Yeah.
pretty hard up to talk about everything.
The biggest thing I want to point out is one of my favorite graphics throughout the movie is the graphic that they use for Rorschach's mask.
Yes.
I thought that was a very, very nice touch.
It was so perfect. Just watching it morph around. Well, I mean, what a great character, from head to toe. But that mask, I mean, that's something else, dude. In a world where there's thousands of superheroes, and I mean, this world right now, I mean, how many people have written superhero books? It's hard to come up with like original characters
Yeah.
that aren't bullshit like
Ant-Man
Superman.
Plastic Cup Man,
or Aquaman.
Ken guy.
I talked to fish.
People run out of ideas at a certain point.
And the other thing I like the mask is the fact that it actually changed. Like you could see like his attitude change, the mask would change, and the mask would smile at certain times too. And it just this is just hilarious.
No, that's your own brain sort of projecting that onto the image.
Well, you'd actually see certain like a smiley face looking thing.
And
I mean,
the other thing I really
No,
love,
it's a Rorschach test. You're seeing what you want to see.
I like when he takes the Rorschach test.
oh yeah, it's a butterfly.
And he gives them the answers they're looking for. But every time he looks at it, he's reflecting on other things, and it's like, I get mad, and then he goes, yeah, like Joe said, a butterfly. I see pretty daisies in a flower bed. So retarded, but it's so funny.
The cast of this movie is honestly the perfect fit, from Jackie Earle Haley to who plays Rorschach to Patrick Wilson being Night Owl. I mean, I don't think there's anybody in this movie that was really ill-placed. I really thought
Patrick Wilson was so perfect. Billy Crudup doing one of the coolest performances of Dr. Manhattan.
And I really liked the Edward Blake comedian guy, the Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
Yeah.
Perfect. Like the perfect actor, perfect look, and he was actually my favorite character besides Rorschach, and I was really bummed to see him die early on. Because I love this, the scene to me that really defined the character was the war was over, he was in a bar, and he shot the Vietnamese girl. He got pregnant.
Oh, yeah.
That to me showed the fact life was a joke.
Well, not to mention the little conversation he had with Manhattan afterwards.
Yeah.
That, it's all about sort of the choices that this all powerful being is making. And he brought it up right there. It's like, you're losing your grip on humanity.
Yeah.
The story was basically told through Rorschach's point of view, because it starts out with Rorschach's journal. In the book, it continues through Rorschach's journal, throughout the entire thing. But it's basically told from his point of view, from his never-ending vigilante point of view. His perspective on all of it is the antithesis of Manhattan. You know what I mean? Like somebody who has all the power in the world but chooses not to do anything, versus somebody who has the least powers out of any of them, but just will never ever quit. Fighting for the greater good.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously we can, like you were saying before, we can go on for days about the Easter eggs and about the meaning and about everything behind it. But really, the reason I picked this movie is the amount of shit this movie took with critics how split everybody was. Either you loved it or you hated it. I can't understand why anybody would dislike this movie.
I can
with you on that.
I can understand. It's just like when I saw Bloodpool and that guy brought his 6-year-old son into it.
You mean Deadpool?
Deadpool. I mean, that's what I meant. Excuse me. But it's the same thing, you know.
I was wondering what the hell Bloodpool
Excuse me.
was.
I meant Deadpool. It's the
I
same.
want to see whatever this Bloodpool is.
Right? You see enough of them. It's just I could totally see that though. If you were going in expecting, you know, like a crappy '90s Batman movie, and then you see a guy who's like
wondering about the nipples poking out.
You see a guy who's 1,000 feet tall in a banana hammock. I mean, it just kind of blows your expectations away when you see something that's just completely different.
Yeah. The time that they made it was perfect. Everything that they needed to do from the book was available to them. I think
3 hours.
nailed with the visuals, the style of filmmaking, the way they were tracking everything.
We're waiting for Ryan to buffer again. I would
really.
Yeah. I would say that the one thing that I actually really appreciate in this comic book was when the original Night Owl died. Warning, spoiler. I really liked the fact that they showed what happened to old heroes.
Yeah.
That was one of the part that I really enjoyed the most, was the fact that eventually they have to retire, and there's a point that they're no longer able to defend themselves, and I really appreciated the fact that they're not showing it like, oh, there's old Bruce Wayne who's crippled and he beats the crap out of people like he did in Batman Beyond.
Yeah.
They do a little of the Hollis Mason died because he was one of the few people who was out as an old superhero. Ozymandias being the other one, but nobody's gonna screw with him. But they did do a little bit of that with the original Jupiter, the original Miss Jupiter, which to me, what book was that? It was a Batman. Oh, it was Dark Knight Returns.
Huh.
When he goes to visit Selena Kyle, and she's put on some weight. But you know, and sort of what that high octane life, that adrenaline rush life will kind of do to you once you don't have it, you know. So Miss Jupiter was quite an alcoholic and really fond of the old memories and nostalgic for the old times, and never really got over it. And even things like what happened between her and the comedian, like she was explaining to her daughter, gets colored in a different light, you know.
Which that's a hell of a thing to like, hey, that was okay.
I mean, that's the thing is, I mean, the shit that they were doing, the points they were making was way beyond anything you've ever seen in a comic book movie before, you know.
And I think during the 80s, because this was an 80s comic though, right?
Yeah.
I think the 80s was kind of a revolution for comic books, because at the same time that the Killing Joke came out and other movies that just took comic books to a whole new level, one that wasn't really there before. And for me, this movie is a 4 to 5. For the time, I think this movie was revolutionary, which is weird because it's a 30-year-old comic book at the time. This besides the fact it's 2 hours and 45 minutes, parts of the movie to me are a little slow. The pace of the movie is perfect, though. The music's perfect, so it's a strong 4 to 5.
I mean, to me, I don't think it gets any better. I don't think anybody could have done a better adaptation. They eventually even came out with their kid sitting at a newsstand reading a comic book, and the original graphic novel would actually cut between the story that you're reading of the Watchmen into this kid's comic books. So they actually did a version of the movie where it starts cutting into that story and it makes the movie, you know, good 20-25 minutes longer, but to me it's a perfect little, like, well, now I'm into this story. What's going on here?
So he copied Peter Jackson. So what do you give it, Ryan?
It's the 5 out of 5 I've ever 5.
High five.
James?
Yeah. Actually, I can agree with Ryan. I think this is where the superhero movies shine, is when they get gritty into the film. which is like what the comic books are. Comic books are not little kid, Archie and Casper the Friendly Ghost. Real comic books are gritty. They're in the mud and the gunk and everything, and they show you what the superhero's life is.
I would say this was a teenager, not young teen, teenager above level comic for the original. So no, I completely
13,
agree.
you think should be old enough to watch it?
Yeah,
I'm at the
I don't
comic
think
book,
so. I
not the
mean,
movies.
a lot of these concepts are going to be a little too heady even for, your average high school kid. I mean, this solidified, like you were saying, like in the 80s, it got to this point where everybody realized these books are no longer for 10-year-olds.
Oh yeah.
This is not the golden age of Spider-Man, where great power comes great responsibility, and he loves his aunt, and he's a teenager with angst. This is way more complicated and way more of an adult story than
A blue guy nobody wants to see.
Yeah, pretty much. So I agree with Ryan. I think this is 5 out of 5. I think this is kind of what I would like to see more, and they did just kind of get back into that with Deadpool. So I am excited for them getting comics to come out like this.
Well, see, the thing about it is, I mean, that Zack Snyder, this is the guy that I just completely tore a new asshole for ruining Batman versus Superman.
Yeah.
Batman v Superman. I'm sorry, I want to get the title wrong. But to me, that's what happens when you have too many pieces of source material. Batman, I mean, you get 75 years of the character, so it's this cherry picking thing where now it's all convoluted and made this bullshit story. But this one, you had one solid source thing, and I mean, almost panel for panel, they kept it true to the story.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to because there's honestly, we could easily have
we're
an hour to
still
3 hour discussion. We're going to switch to the episode of Doctor Who we did was called Blink, and this is the episode with the Weeping Angels.
Yes.
Okay,
This one is David Tennant, and his companion at the time is the black girl named Martha.
Who was the first? He was the first Doctor of the reboot.
Nope.
No,
he
he wasn't.
Was he? I thought
Christopher
Eccleston.
Chris Eccleston
Okay,
was
the second then.
first one, and then then he was the second. So Eccleston was 9th, Tennant was 10th. So this was Tennant and as the 10th Doctor, and then Martha Jones as the companion, but very, very briefly sort of shown. To me, this is kind of the perfect introduction into Doctor Who. It's really, really hard. James, you'll know what I'm talking about. You can't just walk up to random people. Here's the first season of Doctor Who. Check it out.
Yeah.
It takes you a while to be like, what the hell am I watching here? I mean, it just reeks of like a daytime soap opera, kind of thing. But eventually, once you're a few episodes in, you start understanding the story. Because I never watched the originals. I totally got in the bandwagon with the reboot in 2005.
See, the old guy who does shows with us periodically was such a big fan. He was actually was in the fan club of the original 60s Doctor Who. So the old guy is an old school geek when it comes to this.
But I mean, it's one of those test of time kind of characters that really renews itself, no pun intended, constantly with the idea of renewing the Doctor.
So to actually get into the story, the one thing I love about this episode is it actually really plays up on the time travel aspects of this character. I really love when she was peeling off the wallpaper and it said, blah 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 duck, and everything about this movie was fun. This TV show. And I don't know why people have a hard time with time travel. I mean, I know when Looper came out, everybody said it was complicated. Just follow the story.
Yeah. So, I want to bring this one up. So, Eccleston is actually my favorite Doctor Who, and Tennant is definitely second. And for me, it would be between The Empty Child, which is Eccleston, and then you got David Tennant with Blink. It's a hard toss-up. And the reason why I would pick those two is because it gets you into the darker side of Doctor Who. And things that he knows. And
it's the weird thing, like this show, it plays like a Disney show. You know what I mean? Like the morals of the show and all this stuff are very, very Disney, but where Disney never kills anybody, this show just lays waste to a lot of people. Like, and all of a sudden you're losing characters. This show will break your heart.
Which
and this one, just in itself, because it's such an interstitial story, you know what I mean? It's just this throwaway one-off kind of thing. Doesn't really have much to do with the larger arc.
Yeah.
Which
this introduction of this incredible character of the Weeping Angels,
Yeah.
but it's it just in that one interstitial story when that first person goes back to the 20s, her friend goes to the 20s, and she's reading this thing that she had a great life. I'm sitting there freaking like welling up. You know,
it does remind me of one thing. Why would anybody voluntarily become a companion of Doctor Who? They all end up getting fucked over.
Because he's mysterious and fun.
But they die in horrible ways.
And you get to travel all over the universe at different planes of existence.
I would absolutely trade whatever end I was gonna have just to watch like the end of the universe.
It's like the Cyclops from the movie Crawl. Nothing good can go along with Doctor Who.
Well, when Doctor Who in this reboot of the show kind of does that with Rose in like the first couple episodes, he takes her out, which is his first companion in this series, and takes her out and shows her like the end of the world, and then shows her all these cool little things that come. They're basically fringe perks of being a doctor or a Time Lord, whatever you want to go with. Anyway.
Yeah, Lord. The character of the Doctor.
So
Ryan cannot make it through an episode today.
So what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to cut this part a little short. Unfortunately, we overtalked when it came to the movie being Watchmen. So I want to let you know that we do have a Facebook page. You love us, hate us, just let us know. And if you hate us, you can write us. Just be a little creative. No more the fat guy sucks. Just come on, be creative here.
Stab you in your brain.
And the other thing we want you to know, we now also have an audio podcast. We're available on Podbean, Stitcher, Google Play, and more. And so we're switching over to movie news. So hopefully Ryan has some. So Ryan, you're up.
Ryan's still looking and got distracted by talking about Watchmen.
Okay, so we're going to switch it up a little bit, is because if you pay attention to the Facebook page, I just mentioned, we do post stories periodically on it. And the one thing I wanted to see, my other two co-hosts think they're going to redo Magnificent Seven. What do you think?
I did see a post about that. I didn't read the article, but I mean, that's I need a Western every other year. And especially nowadays, I mean, back in the day, it used to be really easy to do a Western because the other guy that just did a Western still left the set in the middle of the desert. So we just need like a handful of horses and some colts, and you can go film a Western movie. But nowadays, the deliberate, like scene making and scouting these unbelievable locations like Tarantino's Finding or like True Grit, the remake, or Open Range, that kind of stuff. It's gotten almost more authentic as time has gone on. So I really do need a new Western every year. This is a good one. I mean, it's due for a remake.
So
shit.
Here's where my old guy spirit kicks in. I love Yul Brynner. And I really think it's really hard to replace Yul Brynner in anything, honestly, especially in this movie. So it'll be interesting to see how they do it. According to thing, it'll be Denzel Washington and Chris Pratt.
Oh, that's your favorite guy.
So I wonder if it's going to be more comedic, because a lot of Chris Pratt stuff is a lot more comedic than straight. Guardians of the Galaxy and the other stuff he's done. So what do you think?
To me, I think I've often said, a good drama can be judged by its comedy. Same thing goes for action movies or these ensemble cast kind of things. There's already enough inherent cool. Now you have to make it, like entertaining. Getting somebody like Chris Pratt is kind of the way to go. I mean, he's hot shit right now. And I can see him in a Western quite easily.
So do you think he's going to play it more of a serious character or kind of his trademark?
I think he's going to do his trademark smart-assy, sort of sarcastic kind of person, which would fit well. I mean, you have an ensemble cast, you have to have that guy.
So kind of like the Dom DeLuise of the 2016s.
No. Wow. That was a hell of a weird comparison.
Oh, I kind of did it on
Tom
purpose.
DeLuise.
Just kind of throwing something out there.
We're gonna have to have a discussion about Tom DeLuise later.
And the one I'm actually really excited about, The Killing Joke, is officially Batman's first rated R film.
Which, I mean, if you weren't going to do this rated R, scrap it.
Yeah.
Seriously. So I'm actually really excited to see this. And the last bit of one is something I wanted to talk to you guys. Do you think The Revenant will stand the test of time?
No.
Yeah.
No? Yes? Because
I don't think so. I mean, it's the only thing that it can have going for it is maybe it gets picked up like the Jeremiah Johnson.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Do you think it'll have the Jeremiah Johnson-esque feel to it? The fact that is kind of held up a little bit more than, say, films of its era?
No, I actually don't think so. I think there's too many lulled scenes, and the kids growing up these days, I don't think they can appreciate a film as well like that.
Really?
Yeah, but I think that's no reason not to make a movie like that, though.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying,
and then just
as a
because there's
taste
some
it-
idiots out there who need, you know, their adrenaline tapped into their veins while they're watching a movie, you know, doesn't mean that's sort of par for the course with your average moviegoer. I mean, I do agree that everyone's attention span's getting a little bit shorter, and it's reflecting in the big tentpole movies, but there's still people out there who like to take their time and tell a story, and there's always going to be people who want to see those stories.
Yeah, but I don't think John's question is it going to stand the test of time? And I
think it is.
I mean,
think it's authentic enough.
20 years down the road.
See, the only way I think it will is it won't be a mass market audience anymore. I think it's really going to be like James said in Jeremiah Johnson, where it's people like us who are film buffs, grew up watching a bunch of films, don't particularly care what we watch as long as it's entertaining. I could see it go that way, but I just can't see it be like, say, Avengers.
Well, it's because it's not Avengers. What the fuck kind of a comparison is that?
Well, Avengers via like 20 years from now.
Get where John's coming from.
20 years from now, everybody's going to say, "Hey, Avengers is on. Let's watch it." You know, it's a
yeah, but that's Avengers. I mean, that is apples and oranges. You know, to this kind of thing.
Okay, well, it's like Dances with Wolves. Nobody watches Dances with Wolves anymore except people who are into film.
Or
honestly,
Mohicans.
I don't know too many people who are willingly watch any of those movies. I think that's going to be with us.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was thinking is Dances with Wolves was what came to mind.
I think at this point, when you're making something like this, you're making something of the Victorian era or of, you know, the late 1800s, early 1900s. We've gotten to a point where we can make it as authentic as it could ever be. It's just as authentic making it today as it would be 30 years from now. You know, the only thing that's ever going to be different is like things like pacing or composition. But they even use the most realistic composition they possibly could with all the lighting and everything like that, and the shaky cam or steady cam rather. It was it's the best you could have told that story.
Well, I don't.
The story holds up. I think the movie holds up.
I don't disagree with you. I think the only thing that's going to affect it, and we'll definitely see what happens, is the pacing. Like if this movie was made 20 years or even 30 years ago, this movie would have been much slower. So I think that's what's going to happen is people just need this boom, 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 boom action scenes like the Avengers. Avengers is nonstop.
I mean, look at something like No Country. There's nobody that's going to know about because it was slow. The first 10 minutes, nobody said a word.
Yeah.
It was a guy looking through a scope.
True, and it didn't have it. I'll agree.
Nobody said anything. You know, up to your big standards, everybody would have got up and walked out of the movie theater.
Also had an amazing soundtrack. And the last bit of movie news, just because we're rounding up the end of the show, is the new Jason Bourne trailer's out. Check that out. What do you think? Yay, nay?
I'm not gonna watch it. I want to see the movie.
If it's got Matt Damon in it, we're good.
It has Matt Damon in it, so this is after he promised he would not do any more Bourne movies. So it should be interesting.
Well, see that it could go either way because the first two, Bourne Identity and Bourne Supremacy, were based on novels.
Yes, by Robert Ludlum.
The third one, and then the interstitial bullshit, were obviously not. And you can tell that the material was made by film writers instead of some guy really piecing together a beautiful novel.
And the last bit of news, because I decided why not, is Benedict Cumberbatch will voice the Grinch in a new version of it.
That makes sense. He could play the Grinch. Look at his face. You could Hoovian that face up a little bit.
It's a little Jim Carrey-ish.
Yeah.
I still think you'd made a better Moriarty. So
No. Adam Scott, I believe is his name, the guy that played Moriarty in Sherlock. Doesn't get any better than that.
So, ladies and gentlemen, next week is our theater pick, and so that being said, we're also going to be introducing our theme for next month. What we're going to pick is family movies. So, and that being said, we're going to pick the Disney's new live-action Jungle Book. That shouldn't have taken as long as it did to get out. No. So we're doing the live-action Jungle Book. Are we going to do a TV series?
Yes, we are going to be doing Daredevil Season 2, Episode 3, New York's Finest.
Nice.
What he said. So, ladies and gentlemen, I gave The Watchmen a 4 out of 5. James gave it a 5 out of 5. Ryan gave it a 5 out of 5. We gave Doctor Who episode Blink a must-see. And as always, thank you for watching.
Goodbye.
Thank you.